Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Now in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to recreate this frosted glass effect in Figma. We're going to go a little bit further than just creating that blurry background. We're going to add some styling, so some noise, some graininess to the texture. We're also going to add a little bit of depth with some shadows and just a little bit of an outline just to give it that glassy feel. I'm also going to show you really quickly a few examples on Dribbble of how the frosted glass effect is applied to UI designs and just designs generally. So let's not waste any time and let's head straight into it. So as I said, we're here in Dribbble. Dribble's a great website just to find some examples and some inspiration for your design work. And as you can see, I've typed in Glassmorphism. Now, Glassmorphism is quite simply the term used to describe this particular style of design. And as you can see, there are loads of different ways to apply this. One of my favorites is sort of this UI design. You can kind of see there's a kind of similar effect to what we're going to be creating today, where these background elements are blurred, almost as if a sort of semi-transparent piece of glass sits between that background element and your eye. So this is kind of what we're going to start recreating. It's very popular, particularly as we move away from flat UI design to something with a little bit more of a material feel. You're probably going to see this a lot more often. So let's get into Figma and let's recreate this. So I've gone ahead and opened up a blank design file in Figma, and what we're going to do is start completely from scratch. So if you're brand new to Figma, you should find this nice and easy to follow along with. We're going to start by adding a frame. So you can either press F on your keyboard or in the toolbar, select the frame tool to create a new frame. Keeping it simple, a frame is a way to contain the elements of your design into a canvas of its own that you can easily export as a picture, SVG, PDF to use as you please. So we're going to start by selecting one of the presets, and this just defines the size of your frame. I'm going to go with Instagram post. It's quite popular, and it just gives us this nice square canvas that's 1080 pixels wide and 1080 pixels tall. So to start creating the effect we're looking for, we kind of want a dark background with some brighter elements and then that glass on top, just so that we can see some contrast between the background element behind the glass. So I'm going to go with a really deep blue color, somewhere that's quite saturated but quite close to black, somewhere around here. And then that just means when I add the two blue circles that there's going to be a big contrast between the brighter blue circles and the deep blue background, which should create a nice effect. So to add the circles, you can either press the O key on your keyboard or come up here to the toolbar again to the shape tools, click on the drop down and you can find ellipse. Let's just click and create one of those. Now to start creating a circle, you can just start clicking and dragging. And as you'll see, this, it kind of, you can create a wider or taller circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what I'm going to do is press the shift key while I drag. And what that's going to do is just make sure that the height and width are exactly the same. So we get this nice perfect circle. I'm going to go quite big with the circle because I'm going to tuck it into the corner to something around here. And let's go ahead and push that up into the top left corner. Let's slightly resize it to be a bit bigger. And just in case you have added your circle and you see the sort of sides are hanging outside the frame, and then you click to move the frame and you realize, oh, hang on, why are they separate? Just make sure you check in the top left, the left-hand side, sorry, on the layers panel, that the ellipse that you've just created or the circle is a child of the Instagram post. So click and drag and move that move that circle into the Instagram post. And as you'll see, it's now contained within the frame. So let's duplicate that circle. All I'm going to do is press and hold the Alt key while clicking and dragging my circle to create a perfect copy. I'm going to release the mouse and now we should have two nice circles. I'm going to select both of them and hold in Shift. I'm just going to press center and center just to make sure that they're nice and perfect. You don't need to do this. You can eyeball it by all means. What I'm going to do next is again select the circles and we're going to give them that blue color. So I'm going to hold down the I key, which is the eyedropper tool, and I'm just going to select the background color. So now these circles are the exact same color as the background. The reason I've done that is we've now got the perfect hue of the same type of blue in the background. And what I'm going to do is bring that saturation up somewhere around here, something quite vivid. And yeah, that's pretty much going to do for our circles. The next element we want to add is our glass. So quite simply, we're going to create a rectangular piece of glass. So we can press the R key on the keyboard, or again, come up to the shape tools, select rectangle. And again, same thing, we can freeform or restrict to a perfect square with Shift. And we want to make this quite big, and I'm going to move it to the center, and we should see some guidelines to help us know when we're in the center a little bit bigger. Now what I'm going to do to this shape is add a little bit of roundness to the corners. And the next step is making it transparent. So I'm going to go with white as the sort of color, but we're going to make it really, really see-through. So we're going to bring this down quite a significant way. We almost want it to be just sort of visible against the background, somewhere around here. And now you can kind of see we've got a sort of transparent object. It's not quite glassy, but we're starting to see the effect come together. So with that glass layer or the rectangle selected, we're going to come down, and this is where the effects start to kick in to the effects section. We're going to click on this plus icon to the right, and that's going to add a drop shadow. So what we do to change the effect from drop shadow is click on that little drop down where it says drop shadow, and we're going to select background blur. And you might not be able to see it because it's very, very subtle, but it's already working, quite small, but you can see it there. This little icon here to the left of that drop down is the effect setting. So we're going to click this, and you can see currently we've got 4 pixels worth of blur. And if I start to drag that up, you should see that that blur increases. So we want something quite big. We want quite substantial blurring of the background. So I'm just going to keep dragging this until it feels kind of close to what I want. And I feel something around there is quite nice. You can by all means leave it there. We already have that background blur effect working. But let's take it a few steps further. So we want to create, a few more kind of design tweaks to make this glass look glassy. So one of the more popular things to do is add a really subtle and soft white sort of outline or stroke. So with the glass layer or the rectangle selected, let's come over to the right design panel again and over to stroke. Let's click on the plus icon to add a new outline. And we want to change the color from black up to white. And rather than going for 100% opacity, we're going to bring this down till it's just sort of slightly visible. I'll zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. So we really are talking about quite a subtle white outline. And I think 1 pixel is probably a little bit too small. So I'm going to try something around 2. Might go bigger. Let's zoom back out and see. No, I think that's really good. So we've kind of got that small, subtle outline working around our glass. The next thing to do is to give it a little bit more texture. Really popular is noisy gradients is what they're called. So where you've kind of got that blurring in the background, to actually add a noise texture to create some sort of, bumps and kind of create that material feel by having more than just that transparent effect. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a plugin in Figma called Noise. So I'm going to press Control and P to bring up the command palette. And I've already used this plugin, so I can just type in Noise. If you've not used it before, come up here to Resources, Plugins, search for Noise, and then click Noise. This is what you're looking for. It's a little plugin, nice and simple. It looks like this. I'm not going to worry too much about the setup of this noise. I'm just going to click this plus, and I should get a nice little rectangular layer with this image set that's kind of this grainy. I'll zoom in again. This kind of grainy, noisy effect. So with that rectangle selected, I'm going to come over to the fill. And if you click just to the left, you see where this image is here. If you click just to the left of that section, you should be able to highlight it all blue. When that's highlighted, if you press Control C to copy, you can copy that to your clipboard. We're then going to click on the glass layer that we made and paste with Control V. This is very intense, and this is not what we're going for at all. But we're going to tweak this so it looks a little bit better. So click on the image, this top layer within your fill, and we're going to come over to this kind of teardrop icon, which represents blend modes. We're going to change the blend mode to overlay, and this just affects how that layer impacts the design. So we've got things like lighten and darken. These are quite simple to explain. So this just means that the layer we're currently talking about can only make the layer below lighter. So for example, if you had a white circle on a black background and it was set to blend mode lighten, it would show. If it was set to blend mode darken, because white is not darker than black, it wouldn't show. That's kind of how blend modes work. So there's all sorts of different rules. It's another topic for another day, but we're going to select overlay. And yeah, so now you can kind of see we've got this graininess, but it's quite intense. So we're just going to use this opacity slider. We're going to start somewhere around 10% and just work our way up by pressing Alt and dragging towards the right until we kind of see that noise, but not, we're not trying to take away too much from the design. And I quite like this effect here, just a nice subtle grain. So the last effect I'm going to try and add is some soft shadows. We can either come down to effects and click plus, or with the glass effect selected, I'm going to use another plugin called Smooth Shadow. Really recommend doing this. It creates really realistic shadows, and you can pretty much accept them straight away. The only thing that seems to have just happened is by applying these shadows, they look really nice, but they seem to have removed the background blur. So we're just going to go ahead and re-add that background blur. And let's set that back to around 200. And there we go. So what we've got now is this frosted glass element in the middle. I still think that graininess is perhaps a little bit intense. We've got the frosted glass in the middle. We've got the soft white outline. We've got a little bit of shadow to create some depth. And you can see here how these simple tweaks have given us not only a kind of attractive visual effect, but also something that looks a bit more material. And I definitely think as we move away from, simple, minimal, flat UI design, we're probably going to see more and more materials, more shadows, and more kind of realistic looks in UI design. But there we go. That is how to create a frosted glass effect in Figma. You can create some really cool effects with this as well. If we change the color of one of these circles, you can change the size. There's all sorts of things you can do to create some really interesting effects. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please feel free to drop a little comment below and let me know if you gave this a try. Please like the video. It really helps me out. And if you can, and if you want to, please do subscribe because it really helps me out. And I'd love to see you come and join me for future tutorials. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.